Welcome back to Rare Finds and Raw Reviews. If you heard my previous podcast or previous episode, you'll know that I'm starting to do follow-up readings. So if you guys are on my YouTube, you'll know that I do like daily readings. I try to do it Monday through Friday. As far as posting it on my YouTube, like if you follow my Facebook or my Instagram, you'll notice that you'll see it maybe 3 times out of the week. But because on YouTube they're shorts, so I'm able to split that up into days, because they're like 1-minute shorts. Anyhow, so with this podcast, I am elaborating a little bit more on my readings. So today's reading, the one that I pick. So my podcast will be like the one that I had liked for the week or whatnot, or one of my favorites. So this one is Promises About Being Safe in God's Love. So this is going to be the scripture. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. And this is going to be the reading of the author, which is Lori Beth Jones. So this one is called Safe in God's Love. There is an incredible painting by the Spanish artist Sorolla that depicts a man dressed in a priestly white gown standing before a group of lepers. His arms are raised and the expression on his face is a mixture of anger and compassion. He faces a crowd of children that is ready to hurl sticks and rocks at the lepers huddled behind him. The priest stands in the gap as a human shield. Jesus stood in the gap for us. He was willing to come up against all negative forces in the world and tell us in effect, get behind me and they cannot affect you. I will absorb and deflect the harm. This is quite beautiful. So let's elaborate a little bit more on the scripture. So the scripture is God has not given us a spirit of fear. So mind you, this is just my perspective. So in my experience, of course. Now, I at 100% feel that, because it's like sometimes we go through emotions and we don't quite understand it. And one of them is going to be fear. Now, fear can occur in every individual different ways. Like for myself, for instance, when I experienced fear, I was fearing the future. I don't know like what my future holds. And, I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate. We don't know where our life is going to go, where it's going to end up. But instead of living in that constant fear, you have to turn that fear into faith, and have faith that God is going to lead you where He wants you to be, where He has already created this plan for you. So for a really long time, I was dealing with fear. I mean, honestly, I couldn't even sleep at night because I was dealing with it because I feared my future. I didn't know, I guess you could say, some people might call it like a midlife crisis, where you have the reality of, wow, I'm actually getting older. I'm in a different stage of my life where I'm not young, but I'm not old yet, but I'm like right in the middle. So like, what do I do with my life right here? So I was in that constant battle for a really long time. I'd say 3 or 4 years, and, but there was a lesson in that moment of fear, like God was like trying to tell me, hey, don't worry. Don't worry. I got this. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be fine. Just trust in me and, trust that I'm going to take you places that you can't even imagine yourself being in, So I learned through that lesson, that very, very long lesson, that I needed to trust Him more. And I needed to lean on Him more. So my fear with time turned into faith. So I learned, just like the scripture says, God has not given us a spirit of fear. No, that was not of God. That was definitely the enemy attacking me and I was a threat to the enemy because he put me into fear, because God knew where he was going to take me. He knew where my next chapter was going to be, but the enemy was like, whoa, she's still new. You know what I mean? She's still learning about God. She don't know God at 100%. You know what I mean? She's still living in the world. So I still have a little bit of control over her. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop this emotion of fear into her. And I'm going to consume her with it. And she's going to be in this state for a while because I have control. So yeah, when we get into this particular type of emotion, we're allowing the enemy to have control over us. And that's just not the way it's supposed to be. Because remember, God has equipped us with everything we need. So I stayed in that state of mind for a really long time, and it was not a good feeling. It was a very uncomfortable feeling, and it wasn't real. You know what I mean? It was a lie, so through time and through day by day, I was healing and I was learning, and I literally indulged into the Bible, and I stayed in that Bible until God healed me from fear, and my fear became faith. And then remember, it says, but of power and love. So then when I learned to turn fear into faith, I understood God's power. And that means overcoming that lie and that emotion of fear, and that became faith. And then I got control of God's power in me. And then that power turned into love, because God loved me past all those lies and those emotions that I was going through. And now I live in God's love, and then of a sound mind. Sound mind takes time, because you naturally will have it, but because of the noise of the world, it causes chaos, and then, it's hard to have a sound mind when you need peace to have that. And not just any peace, God's peace. So during that whole process, God blessed me with faith. He blessed me with his power, which became his strength. And his love was overflowing in me. And then I got the sound mind. That means a mind of peace. That means that I could sleep at night knowing God was protecting me. And all of it wasn't like overnight. It took time. But all of that was like a foundation that God laid for me, and he built me up in his strength. So when I sleep at night, I sleep knowing peacefully that God is protecting me while I sleep. He protects me during the day, and he protects me at night, like he protects me, period. Just like when it goes into this saying right here, Jesus stood in the gap for us. He was willing to come up against all negative forces in the world and tell us in effect, get behind me and they cannot affect you. I will absorb and deflect the harm. That is 100% my experience, and that is what I went through. And again, I went through it for 3 to 4 years. Like every day I was battling, and it was not easy. But you know what? At the end, because God has allowed me to be here with everything he equipped me with, but he taught me. See, that's the thing. I didn't just learn like for day to day, you know what I mean? Like he taught me like everything for my life. You know what I mean? Like this is life, and I don't know how much more to explain that. The relationship with God takes time. Just like with us, it takes time for us to grow, to understand. Like, you don't want things to happen at the snap of your finger. You want it to be with time, because with time, it allows you to appreciate, and it allows you to be humble and have the experience. And know that if you ever bump into somebody and somebody's going through that, you can use your experience to help them go through it. So it's not just your experience, it's the experience you've had with God, to let somebody else know that it could be in that particular predicament, and tell them, hey, it took me time, it took me years to be where I'm at today, and yet I am still learning. But I have a foundation that God laid for me, so everything I learned from here is just it's adding on to the strength and the capabilities that God has already given us, and it's just making us stronger in Him. So when we have to battle and we have to fight these emotions or these lies that that the world tells us, which would be the enemy tells us, we have the armor, and we also have the what we need to battle. We're not, what is the word I'd like to use? We're not hopeless. We are hopeful, and we have a lot, so it makes it oh my gosh, I heard this wonderful thing that Joyce Meyer said. She says, when you wake up in the morning and you put your feet on the floor, you should make hell. You should scare hell when you put your feet on the floor. You know what I mean? Because you're awake and you're ready to battle another day. So she said, you don't want to be famous on earth. You want to be famous in heaven and in hell. They need to know who you are, because everybody is equipped. Everybody has God living in them, and you should make hell shake when you wake up in the morning. Make them fear you, not the other way around. So I thought that was a beautiful saying, and ever since I heard that, I'm like, yes, you know what I mean? When I wake up, I put my feet on the floor, hell needs to shake. Hell needs to fear me, because I'm awake. God woke me up. He's equipped me. He's given me the armor. I'm still learning because I'm adding on to that armor. He's given me everything I need to go to war, So just remember that God will equip you. You're already ready. You just have to be willing to learn, It's a journey, but it's a beautiful journey. It's worth the journey. It's worth the joy. It's worth the love. God is worth it. He is 100% worth it. So anyways, so I wanted to elaborate on that, safe in God's love. Absolutely. And, if you're in a relationship or looking for a relationship with God, and you question, is it worth it? I'm going to tell you from experience that it is so worth it. Is it going to be easy? Nothing is ever easy. You know what I mean? Nothing, not even your relationships you have, the job that you have, the things that you go through. Nothing is ever easy, but you might as well have somebody there with you, guiding you and giving you everything that you need to get there and to be able to handle all those particular situations. Well, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for catching up with me at Rare Finds and Raw Reviews. I will try to drop this weekly, and hopefully, it will lighten up your day. You have a wonderful day.